Hey folks, I'm William. This is Runeforged. Welcome to the channel. Today we've got a very special guest, Fenris77, aka Adam, who is the creator of the Shadows of Empire setting for Shadowdark. So probably gonna talk about that a little bit today, as well as just some generic like hobby and creator related stuff. Adam, how's it going?
Good. How are you, man?
I'm doing really well. I'm excited to have you on. I feel like this is a long overdue chat.
Yeah, it's funny. So I've had lots of reviews done, but I haven't done any interviews with anybody. So you're my very first.
I'm the
So treat
first
me gently.
one. Awesome. Yeah, well, you've done some live play stuff, right? So that's I feel like that's
Yeah.
adjacent. Yeah.
Oh, and man, that was my first live play. Like that was nerve wracking.
Yeah, you told me this is
That
like
game
even
on
the
Friday.
first time that you'd ever run on a VTT before as well, right?
Yeah, I had never used Roll20. I had never used Fantasy. I mean, I've played on them, but I've never run the game.
Right, right.
So
That's wild. And I think I felt like it went pretty well. Like maybe we had a
yeah.
couple of very minor technical difficulties, but nothing crazy.
Well, it wasn't like a super. It's not a super dungeon heavy adventure. So
Yes, for sure.
I didn't have to get too deep into the bowels of the mechanics of Roll20 to try and make it work.
That's true. But even sometimes even getting the map on and getting it like the right size can be kind of challenged. But I didn't see like you had any issues with that.
Well, actually, I'm glad that worked. I did change my workflow for making the maps specifically to make those maps for that game more VTT accessible.
Gotcha.
Because my older ones, I was drawing them too small and it didn't scale up terribly well.
Yeah, I seem to
So
remember you asking about that in one of the discords. But before we get too deep,
yeah,
we should probably
okay,
introduce you for people who may not know you.
yeah.
You must tell us a little about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name's Adam. I go by Fenris77 online. I'm on Discord and the Arcane Library. I'm on RPG Pub a lot. And we don't need to talk about my boring day job, but no. So I'm an RPG player and designer, and so this Shadows of Empire thing has been my design jam for the last like 8 or 9 months, and it's been a ride. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think we've reviewed all of. There's three products now, right, in the line of Shadows of Empire. Is that right?
Four counting Blood in the Water.
Four counting Blood in the Water. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go through each of them. I probably forgot a couple of them. But that's awesome. These are some. Actually, I think I told you this, but this is probably one of my favorite published Shadowdark settings right now. Like kind of right up there with Femoria.
Awesome.
Yeah. So just really awesome stuff. And if people haven't checked it out already, they definitely should. There will be links down in the video description if people want to go pick those up.
And I think it pairs nicely with Femoria because we're doing
Yes.
two different things with the settings. So
Yeah, I think so too. And I also think like they're both kind of like dark ages to, yours is a little bit more high medieval Renaissance kind of era, but I feel like you can mash it all
yeah,
together and make something really cool and interesting. Um,
yeah. I actually meant to have two options. Although I'm sure we could mash them together. Anything could be mashed.
yeah,
All very
yeah.
mashable.
Yeah, I feel like the tone is relatively similar. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think it'd be a huge issue. But yeah, so people probably know you best for your work on Shadows of Empire. You want to give us a quick walkthrough of the available supplements and like just a short brief overview of what each one of them is?
Uh, sure. So, and this is the order of release. If had this been a planned series of books, I might not have done them in this order.
Yeah.
But the whole project just kind of happened. So the first book, the core book, is called Shadows of Empire, and the bulk of that book is random tables and bestiaries to run an old world Warhammer style setting for Shadowdark. Um, and so there's not a lot of like history. There's not a lot of info dump. It's all done with random tables. But there's lots of Warhammer style bestiaries and other stuff like that. Rules for corruption, firearms, new classes. I tried what I wanted to do with that is do as much of the flavor without info dumps. That's why the book's so short.
Yeah.
And there's not actually so that book would allow you to use if you had a bunch of Warhammer stuff or another written setting that you wanted to use. These rules would make it usable for Shadowdark, but there's not actually like a hex crawl setting in there. So that was something that somebody brought up.
Was it me?
Somebody
Was it
named.
me?
I think it
Uh-oh.
was you. Yeah, yeah.
I don't even know what I say, man. I turn the camera
Oh
on, I go into a
it
fugue
was
state,
it
you
was
know?
it was a really good point. You're like, there's no hex crawl, there's no
Yeah.
actual like specific setting in here. So I had been writing. So on to the next one because this is all linked together here.
Yeah.
So the second book I released is called Deadlands, which is a
Oh
regional
yeah.
setting book.
Yeah.
It's a little piece of the wider Gemel Valley setting that I'm
Yeah.
developing. And that actually started out as just an adventure. which is the adventure that's the back half of that book called Durance Vile,
Right.
with the Skaven in the mine and the zombies and the rest of it. But after getting some feedback from you and a couple of other people that, hey, it'd be nice to have a hex setting, I built the whole hex setting part of Deadlands on top of that so that I could get that out and people could have a place to play.
Cool.
So that's why Fort Durance is a relatively complete settlement, and you've got a hex map to play on, and there's encounter rules and the rest of that stuff.
Yeah, Fort Durance is really awesome. It definitely has that kind of Warhammer Border Princes vibe to it, and there's like a lot going on in the town, so I like that one a lot.
Well, and this is, I have really specific ideas about what I want to be able to do in a settlement when it's this kind of game. And I want factions and interesting NPCs and stuff to do, but I don't want it to be endless paragraphs of stuff to read. So the goal is really to try and be as interesting and evocative as possible without bloat. And, we all bloat a little bit. So that's Deadlands. And people seem to really like that. And then I wrote another adventure that's set in the Deadlands called Tower of Hapshut, which is like a Tomb King's book. So it's mummies. So Deadlands is wet undead, and Tower of Hapshut is dry undead.
Nice. I appreciate the distinction. Yeah.
And so that where that adventure is located is one of the keyed hexes from Deadlands. So Deadlands and Tower of Hapshut, you can just kind of smoosh it all together into one place to play.
I had filed them all together in my brain into the same thing, which is why I said there were three.
Well, and this was sort of the vision that I had in my head of what the supplements would look like when we started putting them all together.
Sure.
So you'd have books with hex maps and an adventure, and then some additional adventures that went in particular places. So you could eventually have them all together, and yay. So that's the first three books, and then the book I just released is Blood in the Water, which is a little bit more standalone. It's set in the Central Valley, which does not have its own hex setting yet.
Yeah.
But it's a cult hunt set in a dilapidated swamp town. The one that William was kind enough to come and play with us and the rest of the boys on Dungeons and Dyslexia on Friday.
Yeah.
Everybody had a good time.
Yeah.
And I did voices.
Yeah, you did.
The hell out of me. I had no plans to do voices at all, man.
Well, I think was it Raz? I can't remember the other gentleman's name. I think his name was Raz or something like that. He came in and he had like the most phenomenal voice acting. I was like, oh man, this is this is too good.
Yeah, I think it might have been that. And so I can't actually do like a ton of voices, but I could do blustery elderly English gentlemen. Okay.
Which, as it turns out, was a big part of the adventure. So it turned out okay.
It needed to be done. I'm glad we're going to get a chance to finish that.
Yes, me too. I hate when you start something and you don't come to a satisfying conclusion. Not that the midpoint fight wasn't cool, but I want to figure out all the stuff's going on in town. So
there was a whole other half to that midpoint fight that we just ran out of time to do.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
But there wasn't really there needed to be some exploration or investigation.
Yeah, of course.
It just takes time. Investigations aren't awesome for one shots. The time constraints make it complicated. So I thought we did well.
Yeah, I thought so too, for sure. And I think I mentioned in one of my, I don't know if I did a video on it or a blog post or something, and I mentioned that I wanted more combat, but I totally understand for the style of game, especially in the one-shot style that we had to run it, it wouldn't have made sense in the context anywhere else except for where it happens. So I think it's fine.
Yeah. Well, and if you were playing that same adventure normally, there are encounter tables. If you're out and about at night, there's combat as possible, even during the investigation phase. But
gotcha.
Yeah, the scene of the Velvet Glove is really where the switch goes, and combat becomes a much larger part of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was kind of done on purpose because Shadowdark supplements haven't really spent too much time investigating the investigation adventure idea.
Yeah,
and
true.
so part of writing that, as I just wanted to say, okay, well, what does an investigation look like for Shadowdark in the setting that I've written? I mean, not that the setting makes that much difference in this case, other than it's got all those common Warhammer tropes.
Right.
But yeah, so
yeah, it's really exciting. I'm curious what you think makes a good investigative adventure, and what were you doing in that adventure specifically to try and make it a good investigation?
Well, so what I wanted to do with this one was about the town of Clearwater. So I wanted really memorable NPCs. And so interestingly, there's hardly any actual physical clues in this investigation. It's all going to talk to people, and they point fingers at each other. I mean, there are eventually some clues that you can find, but mostly the players will put it together from talking to people. And I just wanted to see how it would look if you have to go interact with all these villagers. How alive can we bring this town of Clearwater? So I tried to pack a lot of evocative local color into it. rather than there being like a string of papers to find or that sort of thing, which frankly, it moves an investigation along, but doesn't do much on the role playing side. Like, oh, you found a letter um, in the Duke's desk, and here's a picture of it, and read it, and that's it. That's all you get at the table. But interacting with NPCs is more interesting.
Gotcha.
Although I think that it might be a challenging adventure to run if you've never done that before. I think you'd have to work at it because you need to take those things that they say and work them into conversation, unless you just want to be like, oh, and he tells you to go see Old Gert or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get that. So yeah, this is probably a little bit more challenging, but probably mostly for the GM, but also maybe for the players, making sure they're asking the right questions. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a role playing adventure, especially
Yeah.
the first half. The second half is much more traditionally Shadowdark, monsters and treks through the muck and mire of the swamp and sacrifice and stuff.
Yeah, gotcha. Oh yeah, like I said, I'm very excited to wrap it up. Do you think we'll be able to get it done in 2 sessions, or do you think it'll probably stretch out to 3?
I Well, I'll talk to Adrian. I think he wants to try and get it done in one. So what I'll have to do
Yeah.
is I'll take the aftermath of the Velvet Glove. Actually, I might start with the second half of that, and then we'll just kind of compress the aftermath bit, and I'll throw you guys right into the swamp.
Works for me.
It's not really a half. The investigation is, if you were playing it normally, the investigative part is probably 2/3 of the play value in terms of sessions spent.
Gotcha.
Like, I would probably say if you were going to run this, it's probably 3 sessions. One straight investigation, one investigation in the Velvet Glove, and then the last one for the aftermath. But depending on the players, it could be faster or slower than that. Some players love just really getting to know the NPCs and exploring places. So that sort of group is going to get a lot of mileage out of it because there's a lot of NPCs and places to look at considering how small the village is.
Yeah, gotcha. Very, very cool. Yeah, like I said, I'm excited to wrap it up and see, who's behind all these shenanigans in town. I got some theories, but it feels like everybody's a suspect. You know what I mean?
Well, and that was one of the hardest parts to write is how do I make everybody look guilty to start? Like in
Yes.
any murder mystery show you've ever seen, everybody needs to look guilty so that there's something to investigate. I mean, you can't have a guy walking around in a cult robe going, "I'm the leader of the cult."
Yeah, for sure. Very, very cool. Cool. I was going to ask you, I wanted to shift gears a little. Well, before we do that, if you want to pick up Blood in the Water or check it out for yourself, there will be a link down in the video description if you want to get that. But from there, yeah, we got to get the YouTube thumbnail too. From there, I did want to shift over and ask one of the community questions that came in. So I asked in my little Discord if anybody had any questions for you. And this came from Muzzgrub, who I believe did some editing for you on some...
My mighty editor. The typos in the book are not his fault. Ones that are there, those are my fault.
I understand. Sometimes you'll send changes in and people forget to make them, or they'll make other changes on top of it and they're like overdue. Yeah, so I totally understand.
Yeah, no. So those are my fault. Muzzgrub is a gem.
Yeah, I didn't mean to accidentally roast him.
No, I think he was laughing about it.
Okay, good. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to tell over text. But anyway, he's got a question for you. And he wants to know that if you weren't recreating Warhammer Fantasy role-playing in Shadowdark, what would you like to write about? And as a follow-up, have you thought about using the world for wider fiction, such as a novella or novels, and going for a Land of Eames style multiverse?
Well, so I have no experience with Land of Eames, so I have no idea what that is.
Gotcha.
But I have already written a little tiny bit of short fiction that I posted on my creator thread about a pair of Inquisitors. And those two, Heinrich and Krenzler, will make an appearance in the upcoming book, Ashkelon, which is the general setting book.
Okay, awesome.
So I wrote a sci-fi game called Backsuits and Duct Tape, and one of the things I did with that game is I have some short fiction interleaved that sort of illustrates some of the rules that are next to the fiction in the book. So rather than doing one of those like narrated moment by moment plays.
Yeah.
Oh, so John the GM says this. I put in the fiction bits to sort of illustrate what this thing looks like in play.
Gotcha.
So I might take some of that Heinrich and Krenzer stuff and work it in, or it could be a book. I don't know, but they're fun. I like them both, so I'm probably going to keep writing about them.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Well, I'm sure Muzzgrub would like to see more fiction in that realm. Yeah.
Well, it's fiction's hard.
It is.
But I'll keep. I do these little tiny bits. They're like less than a chapter, just little vignettes. So that's where I've started. In terms of what else I would like to write, so I did write a Backsuits and Duct Tape, which is like sci-fi horror exploration.
Mm-hmm.
And that also admittedly has a bit of a Games Workshop bent. I mean, there's some obvious tips of the cap to Space Hulk.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Yep.
But in terms of, I think people will find that as Shadows of Empire continues, I'm going to go in some directions that aren't exactly the way that the old world goes. Like the old world doesn't really do the Fae very much, and I may explore that at some point. So there's that. And I have a project on the back burner to do something kind of gonzo-y and science fantasy, sort of ultraviolet grasslands in that sort of space for Shadowdark.
Okay, cool.
So that initially started off, I actually started that before I did any of the Shadows of Empire stuff. I wanted a Shadowdark rule set to run Ave Nox by Charles Ferguson Avery.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that.
It's a mega dungeon in a similar sort of science fantasy setting. So I had Ultraviolet Grasslands and Acid Death Fantasy for Troika and Ave Nox, and I just kind of mashed some parts together and said, I want to run this with Shadowdark, so I want more of a setting than what comes in Ave Nox. So that's how that started, but cool. I'll eventually get back to that.
Gotcha. So I did hear you mention Abshalom, I think you called it. It was like is it kind of the overarching setting? Ashalom?
Yeah, that's the main city in the middle of the valley.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so the Gimel Valley is like a pilgrim trail. There's an abbey at one end of Blackrock Pass, so there's pilgrims going up and down. Ashalom is the city in the middle of the valley, and that's as far as you can get on the river. So the pilgrims get off in Ashalom and then take the old trade road, the one that runs past Clearwater, to the abbey and back. So a big part of Ashalom's economy is this constant flow of pilgrims. And then the city itself started off as a Thelaman army encampment. That's where the walls come from. So there's going to be some real visible layers of history stuff going on there, because you've got There's some of those Black Elder ruins that are in Tower of Hatshepsut, if you remember. Mm-hmm. There's some of that in the middle of the city, and then you've got your Thelaman lair, and then the Empire's been building an Empire city on top of that. And this is the Gimel Valley is very obviously border princess-y in its thrust. So sure. I'm going to go for something a little more cosmopolitan than what you get with Warhammer stuff that's set in the Empire.
Okay.
So I'm probably going to throw in, the equivalent of Estalia and some of those other countries along that bottom underneath the Empire. Gotcha. And I might throw in some details for some of the other, there's a gulf at the end of the valley that's got border princey city-states scattered all over it. And I've got some stuff done for a couple of those, so I may introduce those as little, not so much as like a write-up for them, but like there might be an NPC who's from there, or, just a small illustrative piece.
Yeah, it's a good way to add just a little bit of content, but do a lot of world building at the same time.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, cool. So is it going to be primarily like an urban setting, or is that just one small piece of it?
No, that's one piece of it. So This book won't have an adventure in it the same way that Deadlands had Durance Vile.
Okay.
But I'm going to do the hex map for the valley. All of the major valley regions except the Deadlands, because that's done, will get like a spread with who's there, encounters, adventure hooks, travel, that sort of thing.
Cool.
And there'll be the big hex map for the whole valley, and then you'll get probably the back half of the book will be Ashalom, so city map, factions, adventure ideas, and all that other stuff. And I do want it to be an adventure location in and of itself, not just a place where you come to buy more food before you head back out.
Sure.
So yeah, it will also be an urban adventure space, and I'm going to try and that's one of the core design goals for writing it, is that it needs to all be playable. I don't want paragraphs of stuff that only the GM ever reads and that don't really come up and play.
Yeah.
I want the whole thing to be tactile at the table. Ooh, I want to meet this guy. Ooh, let's go here and do that.
Gotcha. Very cool.
That's the plan.
So is this the next thing that you're working on? Or I remember there was like a dwarf and goblin one also in there somewhere.
Yeah, well, so I'll be honest, because you were doing one, I decided to do Ashalom first. Well, because I was like, it seems silly for the two of us to be doing such similar things at the same time.
Gotcha. I mean, it makes sense to me.
And frankly, Shadows of Empire needs this core setting more than it needs the Orc and Goblin book.
For sure.
This book is going to form a significant portion of the expanded print-on-demand rules that I'm going to do after it's done.
Yeah, very
cool. I'm going to put Shadows of Empire and then a bunch of the stuff from the other three supplements that are out now, plus the Ashalom book, into one hopefully 200 or 250 page print on demand rulebook so that it can all be in one place.
Yeah, that's exciting. I hope
And,
that's a smooth process for you.
well, it probably won't be, but it'll be a process.
It'll be a learning experience. So I did my first print on demand with Shadows Camelot not too long ago. It actually wasn't that bad. I just got a little annoyed at how long it took for them to make changes and get me another proof out after I got the first draft back because I made some silly mistakes. And then it took it took a couple of weeks for me to fix something very, very simple. It was really annoying. Yeah.
You're not just updating PDF at that point.
Yes, correct. And it was so weird. What was so weird about it is like the book started like on the right hand page as opposed to the left hand page, which is probably normal for books. But at this point, I'm entirely basically digital. So it was a little bit of a learning experience for me to figure out how to get things formatted quickly for the POD. But hopefully you have a much smoother time than I did.
Yeah. Well, so it was some months ago, actually, I looked into their print on demand templates and stuff. And I started laying out the core Shadowdark book that we have for that.
Yeah.
This is actually where the A5 redesign that I released relatively recently.
Yeah.
That's where that came from. Is I started doing it for print on demand, but then I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do print on demand, it should be sexier than just this one little book.
Gotcha.
So, Project Bloat is a thing, people.
It definitely is. I think we've all been there. I think you mentioned earlier you had something that started with an adventure and it turned into a much larger. That was blood on the water. It was going to be like a 4-page thing to run as a one shot. Turned into an 82-page adventure. Nope, not today. Yeah, that's so funny. Well, I think that's actually a really good segue into talking about the more creator side of things. I think I messaged you the other day. I think if you filter on DriveThruRPG down to like Shadowdark stuff under $5, I think you have like 3 of the top 10 like supplements on there. So
that blows my mind, man.
Very impressive, very
crazy.
exciting. I think like you said the other day, I think there's a real hunger for people to get something that is Warhammer adjacent. That's in a rule set that's a lot less crunchy than what some of the more official products require. So very, very cool. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing some of the sales numbers around Shadows of Empire.
Sure. So all of the PDFs are priced at $4.99.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is I wanted it to be easy for them to press the buy that button. So if PDFs for $10 or $15, I have to think about a lot harder than I do a $5 PDF for myself.
Sure.
And I thought that what I wanted more people playing my game more than I wanted an extra $4 a PDF.
Yeah.
So it's accessible for that. Plus, I decided to keep it there once I realized there was an under $5 section that showed up.
Yeah.
Because I think it's much easier to make that list than it is to make the big list.
Yeah, 100% true. Yes.
So I've sold Shadows of Empire has almost gone gold. I'm in the early 400s somewhere.
And this is just specifically that opening supplement, the
Shadows of Empire core book. So that's 400 and something copies.
Oh, awesome.
And then Headlands has sold. It's like 2 copies away from going Electrum. So it's just shy of 100 copies. Tower of Hapshut is working on copper. I think it's sitting at about 40 odd copies right now.
Okay.
And I've sold, I think 14 or 15 copies of Blood on the Water since it got released.
Okay. Awesome. How do you feel about those numbers overall? You feel good about them? You want to see more?
Yeah. I mean, well, this is the thing. Like, I don't do a lot of advertising or anything. Like, I'm on those Discords and I'm a funny guy. I interact with people, but I did my first advertising post on Facebook like 2 weeks ago.
Gotcha.
So I have no idea how much difference that's going to make. Although there was a little sales spike, but I'm very happy. And frankly, the fact that people really wanted Shadows of Empire when I put it out, it just amazed me that somebody wanted to buy something that I'd written. This is like, whoa, hey!
I know it feels really nice when you get that email that says you get the sales notification. It's really exciting.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I think that I probably refresh DriveThru more often than I should be just to look at those sales numbers.
Yeah.
Not because it's not really about the money. It's the little dopamine that, somebody bought my thing.
Yeah, I totally get it. So Etsy has this really cool thing where if you make a sale, it plays like a cha-ching sound on your phone, and that's like super addictive. So I wish they would add that for DriveThru. It might be more motivation to create.
Now that there's 4 books out, I'm thinking about doing a bundle and putting all 4 of the Shadows of Empire books together for something slightly less than they'd cost by all 4 of them.
Sure.
I'm not sure exactly where I want to price that. So it'd be $20 to buy all four of them. So I don't know, maybe 16 or 17 or something like that. But I think that a bundle at this point with 4 books, I think I've got a bundle's worth of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's there's 3 adventures, extra bestiary stuff. I mean, I think it fits together nicely as a group of 4 books in terms of this can all work together. So
Gotcha.
So I think I'm going to do that.
Very cool. So we did talk a little bit about the sales numbers, how many copies of each sold. Do you mind talking a little bit about like revenue, expenses, and profit for those books as well?
Yeah, that's pretty much all. Because I'm a one-man show.
Yep.
I don't. All the art is public domain. I do all the writing, cartography, and layout myself. So there's not really a lot of expenses other than my time.
Yes.
If we're counting my time, I'm doing this for free.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
But so I was. I had some months while I was waiting for my residency here in Norway to come through, and I couldn't work, so I had a lot of time to write. That's why the books have been coming out so regularly.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I don't know. So it's not. It's a little bit of. It's like fun money. That's the level that I'm at.
Yeah.
I think that I have a suspicion that the print on demand might up that a level, because a lot of people really prefer to have a book.
Yeah.
But I don't have any particular expectations there. I just have a suspicion.
Yeah, gotcha. I can let you know from my personal experience when I released the Shadows of Camelot print on demand. I saw a pretty significant spike in sales at that point. Not so much with Wicked Witch of the Woods, but Shadows of Camelot was definitely true. So hopefully you'll see the same thing.
And I think that I've got enough of an established customer base,
yeah,
and I've had a lot of interest in print on demand. I think that it should sell at least reasonably well. And honestly, it's not like I'm writing a whole other book to do that. It's a collection. So it gives me a chance to put things together. And so all the bestiaries can go together and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, I may buy some additional art for that. There's a couple of art packs by Charles Ferguson Avery that I've got my eye on, but we'll see.
Gotcha. Very exciting. Yeah. I'd be interested to see what happens if you, because you've been using public domain art for them so far. But yeah, there's definitely some really good, like relatively cheap stock art available too on DriveThru. So definitely.
So Charles Ferguson Avery, the packs from that guy, they're $25 each, and they've got like half-page illustrations and space fillers and whatever. But he's the same guy that did all the art for Into the Weird and Wild.
Okay, I've heard of it, but I have not seen it.
He's so good.
Yeah.
But there's some licensing stuff I need to sort out, because one of the 2 packs says you can't use it you're not allowed to use it in print-on-demand items. But I think that might mean he's worried about people putting his stuff on T-shirts. But the other pack doesn't say that.
Oh.
So I need to get in touch and figure out exactly what's going on there, because I would love to use one, but realistically, he's got 3 total, because there's one on itch as well.
Yeah.
So 3 art packs by the same guy would give me a lot of matching art to use. I'd be very excited to do that.
Yeah, very cool. And that doesn't seem exorbitant either. Yeah. Yeah, nice stretch goal. No. Yeah. Very cool. So I think at this point, I mean, I don't know if you would say this, but I think the Shadows of Empire has been pretty successful, especially in terms of how Shadowdark has gone. And I'm curious to know, what do you think? What are maybe like the 1 to 3 things that you think that you're doing really well that's contributing to that success? Well,
I think that I have definitely been riding the wave of Shadowdark popularity for sure.
For sure.
I could have done this with any of the OSR things, but had I done this for Osric or one of the less well-known ones, or even OSC or Labyrinth Lord, I don't think it would have sold as well. I think that there's especially right now, everybody's waiting for Western reaches. And so they want their stuff. I think there was like this perfect moment to get people to, ooh, look, Shadows of Empire, this sounds cool.
Yeah, good timing for sure.
Yeah, I think that so my books are well laid out generally, if I don't mind tooting my own horn.
I was going to mention that if you didn't, yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of content for a lot of games, and layout's hard.
It is.
Even when you have all the right tools, and it's very hard when you don't. So there's some stuff out there just suffers from just so layout, and I think that it takes something away from sitting down and being excited about the book.
It does.
When it's hard to use or it's confusing or whatever. And so I'm always trying to make my stuff as user-friendly and accessible as possible. So little things about the layout, hyperlinked tables of content.
We do love our hyperlinks here, yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think for the big project, I'm going to do a proper index. As much as that makes me want to take a fork in my eye.
I think it's a great idea. A lot of people ask for it, so it would
Yeah,
probably be
none. I don't
nice.
think any of my stuff is long enough yet to need an index,
That's
but
fair.
that
Yeah,
big book I think would need one.
gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
so
I'll
I think
go ahead.
right.
No, go ahead.
I think the layout is one, but I think that my stuff because I'm not using the Cersei Victory template, my stuff doesn't look exactly the same
It's true.
as because a lot of people their stuff it looks identical because they're all using that very specific trade dress.
Hmm.
And so when I started off, so if you look at Black Master the Shadow Serpent, which is an adventure I wrote for a jam before I
Yeah,
did Shadows of Empire, it's much more like it's in the Montserrat font, and it's much more Shadowdark trade dress. And
right.
I've sort of been moving away from that, and I think that does help. It looks a little bit different. I think it adds something to the feel of the setting. Um, there's a lot of stuff from font choices to exactly which public domain art you use. It all kind of works together to give you the feels.
Sure. Yeah, I can tell you, I look at a lot of stuff, especially for Shadowdark, and I bounce off of so many products because the layout is not great, or the writing is unclear or too long. So I think that your stuff is right in a really nice sweet spot when it comes to all those things. So I imagine that's a huge
But,
component.
well, not bloating the writing part is hard.
It is.
Like especially if this is your baby. Like
Yeah.
you want to write and write. Like I've got the beginnings of Ashalom, and I did some pages of text to set up the background, and I'm already like, oh, I don't know, that might be more writing than I want to put in there. Can I turn some of this into a table?
Yeah, tables are great. Love to see table.
But well, and that was sort of when I wrote Shadows of Empire, the first book. I had just done a game jam for Knave,
Cool.
which turned into the Unseen Alchematicals adventure that's also on my drive-through page.
Hmm.
But Knave does such a wonderful job revealing setting through randomization through tables, as does Trophy Loom, which we may or may not talk about more. But I wanted this. It started off as an experiment to see if I could evoke the Empire using random tables rather than paragraphs.
Gotcha.
So yeah, but it is, I think, a more accessible way to do setting-related stuff because not everybody wants to read paragraph after paragraph.
No, I certainly don't. Especially lore stuff. I'm not interested. I'd much rather the author draw on stuff that I'm already familiar with and I already like than try to sort through somebody's new lore, which may not be a popular opinion, but that is genuinely how I feel about things.
Well, the problem is that a lot of people, when they're doing fantasy role playing stuff, they don't step outside of the tropes. They just change the names to protect the innocent. Like, you've got your cataclysm and your gods, and there's some fighting, and they're not really doing anything new, but it's got to have its own names and stuff. And then this is part of the problem. This reminds me of 1970s science fiction or fantasy, where it was full of completely incomprehensible names with too many X's, and you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know to what extent that we agree on this. I think there's probably part we do and part we don't. I love tropey stuff, and I'm totally fine if people just blatantly rip off of it and change the name slightly. That's kind of my jam. But I also understand people want their own unique, special thing, so it is what it is.
Well, I think for role-playing stuff, I think it needs to be approached a little bit differently than if, say, you're writing a novel. If you're writing a
For
novel, you
sure.
probably want to do less of that. But when you're role-playing,
Yeah.
tropes, because I don't know who my audience is,
Yeah.
and it's all kinds of people with all kinds of different exposures to
Mhm.
fantasy games and stuff. So pulling in some concrete images via tropes or whatever that can give them a handhold to start, something to latch onto to start imagining the world is really important. There's a
Yes.
reason why RPGs use tropes and stuff. Now, sometimes it's laziness, but sometimes it's as an aid to understanding,
Yeah.
because you need to get a little bit of firm ground under you,
Yeah.
and then you can start exploring into the parts of it that you're less familiar with. But you need handholds of some kind.
Yes. I know I've definitely been in campaigns where I've been playing and not running, which is fairly rare, but I get dropped into a brand new setting. I have no idea what's going on. I have no touchstones to whatever the GM has been running, and I am just completely miserable because I have no idea what's going on, and I'm not super invested in figuring out the story. I just kind of want to play the game. So I like the
Yeah,
approach that you've taken. Yeah.
well, like the goal when you're role playing is I'm supposed to be playing this character in this world that's
Yeah.
supposed to feel as much like a real world as possible. And
Sure.
different games do that to different extents. But you got to you don't want it to feel like you're standing around on a blank page because you don't know anything. That's not good.
Yeah.
And
For
I've
sure.
had that experience with games before.
Yeah.
Like and this is not about getting dropped in media res or anything like that, but more about I just don't know what the setting is. I'm like,
Yes.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know how my character is supposed to react. Like, oh look, here comes some knights in full armor. Well, I don't know about knights in this setting. What am I supposed to bow? Am I supposed to cheer? Like, what am I doing?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And I think that for other people that might be struggling with this, if you're a GM, a nice little one pager outlining your campaign and the very bare bones stuff about the setting, really good idea. Also, if you can include some related media sources to let people like know like what's kind of adjacent, I think that goes a long way to help players figure out where they are and what they're doing. So that's my recommendation for people.
I agree.
All right, so you've already talked to us about some of the things that you thought contributed to the success of Shadows of Empire. Do you have any other miscellaneous tips for folks who are thinking about getting into the world of publishing, third-party publishing for Shadowdark?
Yeah, I'd say go for it. Would be my first piece of advice. There's lots of, especially right now, there's lots of room. There's lots of interest. The trick is that it's all a little bit harder than it looks like before you've tried to do it. So you need to be prepared to have to grind at it a little bit, like taking your initial thoughts and editing them and changing them. This is the thing. Like so as a teacher, I've spent a lot of time talking to very new authors. People they don't want to change it once they've written it. I'm like, no, I'm good. This is good.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to kill your darlings. You have to be willing to look back and you go, you know what, that piece, that doesn't work. I can't do that. I got to change it to something else. Or that thing that I thought was really cool, that's the whole reason I wrote this. You know what, that part doesn't work. You got to be, whoop, out it goes. Yeah, so you got to be ruthless. And you need to be, so depending on your comfort level to start with writing generally, that part can actually be quite laborious if it's something you haven't done a lot before, because you really want your text to flow. It doesn't have to be fancy or flowery, but it needs to at least be workmanlike. And to be clear and concise and not distracting.
Yes.
And approaching the language at that kind of granular level is a lot more work than people realize before they've tried to do it.
Yeah, I think it's actually a really challenging skill set, because I think you get a lot of like creative fiction authors coming and trying to write stuff but this is really more like it's almost more akin to a game manual than it is to typical creative writing. So there's like a blending that needs to happen there in order to get something that's really special. So it is tough.
Yeah, the manual side, a lot of that comes in the layout, and this is why layout is so important. And so that I actually write into my layout mostly. Like I go from point form and I go right into Affinity. I don't do like a rough draft in Word. But part of that is I want to, feeling out how it's going to build on the page and how it's going to be interacted with and what's it next to and where's it sitting.
Yes.
I want to be doing that at the same time I'm doing the evocative prose to really make it sing. So I do those two things at the same time. That is not everybody's cup of tea though. But I think that because these books are manuals as well as being books, you have to take layout into account when you're doing the words. I think that you can't just do the words and then if you just do the words and then figure out how to lay it out, you'll end up making a lot of changes, I think, if you want the layout to be great. I mean, this is just my personal opinion based on my approach, but
yeah. This is also an opinion that I share, and I've also heard Kelsey, the creator of Shadowdark, say the same thing. She also prefers doing her design work directly in the template. I think that shows a lot just in the cleanness of her design and the fact that she fits most things on a single 2-page spread, like most important topics. So I think this is the way to go, at least for me personally. And if you're not doing it this way currently, just give it a shot and see if you like it. It might save you a lot of time on the back end.
Yeah, I tend to have an idea how much the page count of the bit that I'm doing. I'll have an idea already in my head. This is either going to be 2 or 1 or whatever.
Sure. And
I build it to fit the space that I mean, sometimes it gets bigger or smaller, but yeah, I find it really helps to have that sort of idea going. I think that's some great advice.
Awesome. So we've got just do it and write directly in your layout document. Anything else?
Well, so writing in your layout document is fine. You might not want to start off doing that, especially if you're going to find if the writing's going to be hard. Sometimes you might just want to focus on that.
Okay.
For people that are really new, it might be too much to try and do both at once, especially if they're also brand new to Affinity or InDesign or whatever they're using.
Yeah.
Because those things, there's a learning curve there. Like
there is.
It's a lot. But I think that once you've got your feet under you, I find that my layout is what it is because I write directly into the template. So.
Yeah. Gotcha. And I will just say for people who are intimidated by trying to learn Affinity or InDesign, there are also Word and Google Doc templates available. They don't look quite as nice as the more professional stuff, but if you find this is a really huge barrier for entry to getting into the writing part, maybe try to start with one of those free or very cheap programs that are a little bit more user friendly and just start there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, cool. All right, any other tips before we move on to just general hobby stuff?
Do what you think is going to be fun. That's, like I write the stuff that I write because I think that it's cool and I'd want to play it.
Yeah.
I don't think that writing for other reasons would be nearly as much fun as this whole project has been for me.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's really important, especially I know this is true for me. If I'm trying to write something that I'm not that excited about, it's never going to get done. And there are times when I start off very excited about something and I lose interest in it. And I have found that the best thing that I can do is just put it down and go work on something else. And maybe I'll come back to it, and maybe I won't. And I try to give myself the grace to be okay with that.
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
Gotcha. All right, so let's switch in and talk a little bit more about general hobby stuff. I was curious, sure. When did you get into the TTRPG slash wargaming hobbies? Because I imagine for you, similar to me, these are probably around the same time, but maybe not.
So I started playing the Moldvay box in 1986 or 87.
Okay.
My mom got it for my dad for Christmas a couple years prior, and he never used it.
Yeah.
And then I found it, and that was it. And it wasn't too long after that I actually started playing Warhammer Fantasy. So I had the D&D stuff, and the kids that lived across the road from me ended up with some Warhammer stuff. So my first experience playing Warhammer was probably 1987 or 88, and I used all of the figures from my Shogun game to do a Nipponese army to play on my train set. So I've been doing the Warhammer thing for a long time. That's why this Shadows of Empire didn't feel like work to write, because I've been living with one foot in the Empire most of my adult life.
That's so
my entire adult life, I guess.
And just to clarify, this is the Warhammer Fantasy Battles, the war game, not the RPG, right?
Well, we had that as well. We didn't actually play it very much. The role playing we did tended to be D&D, but we read the role play book a lot. But it tended to be because we were doing the tabletop war game.
Gotcha, makes sense. My story is very similar to yours. I'm about a decade after you, and I started with Warhammer Fantasy 4th edition, the war game, and then very shortly thereafter found the starter set for, I think it was second edition D&D. So it's pretty similar in terms of background there. Yeah. Okay.
So I keenly remember the second edition era because I was working at a gaming store.
Were you?
At the height of its popularity? Yeah. So that was a magical time.
Yeah, I think it really was. The more modern stuff definitely has a very different feel from some of the older stuff, and part of me wishes we could take some of the older stuff and kind of bring it back, but we'll see. Sometimes people prefer different things.
Yeah.
I did want to know what attracted you specifically to Shadowdark in order to try. I assume that you run it as well as also create for it. Yeah.
Not as much as I'd like. I lived in the remote Canadian Arctic for many years, and it was just difficult to find a group. And I've never really been that keen on playing online, so I didn't run it as much as I haven't run it as much as I would like to. But yes, I do run it. So when I read it, it was there are some other games that I love. Troika, for example, I love reading it. I love the content. I don't think I'll ever run it.
Yes.
But Shadowdark, I read it, and it just looked so playable.
Yes.
And it was concise, and the rules were easy, and it didn't, because I've read many, many, many different OSR games, and this one had no rough edges. It had been sanded smooth. I liked the way the characters worked. And it wasn't, so a lot of people spend a lot of time talking about the torch timer. It's cool, but that's not why I love Shadowdark so much. I think it's a great idea. But it's just elegant and so very hackable.
Yeah, I think you've hit on the two big things for me as well. One is it's extremely accessible, especially if you're someone who's coming over, you've only ever played 5th edition before. Understanding the rules of Shadowdark is very simple. Now, the gameplay is very different, but you can understand the actual rules of it really simple, because it's just basically a pared down version with a little bit of extra stuff thrown on. And then you also mentioned, what was the second thing that you mentioned? Hackable. You mentioned hackable. Yes. So there's a lot of, I don't want, gaps is I think gaps is maybe pejorative, but there are a lot of areas that you can fill in with your own home rule stuff, and it's really easy
to.
Yes, thank you. That's a much better term. And then also you can it's really easy to make new classes for the game, especially if they're not spellcasting classes. And I think that gives people there's a lot of fertile ground there for new for new options and stuff, as well as different takes on different settings and stuff like that.
Yeah, the rules they're not fussy. Like some games, the rules are
Yes.
connected in weird ways, and it's
Yes.
not you don't always know, you don't always realize if I change this thing over here, this other thing over on the other side changes. It is very direct and easy to understand, and there's not a lot to break with it.
Yes.
So yeah,
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 I 100%
non-spell
agree.
casting classes are super easy. Well, that's the other thing is it's not there's no bloat in it at all.
Yes, it's very streamlined. Cool. All right, well, I was gonna ask you, do you ever run adventures from like other published adventures from other authors? And if so, do you have any recommendations for the community?
I haven't done that in so long because I've been writing and I've been mostly running my own stuff.
Yeah, same.
The stuff, the adventures from the Cursed Scrolls and all of the Cursed Scrolls hex maps are awesome.
Hmm.
But most of the stuff that I like to run old school BX modules using all sorts of different rule sets. Because one of the reasons I like Trophy Gold so much is I can use that to run something like Keep on the Borderlands or whatever.
Yeah, so
So
you
some of
mentioned.
my
Go
some
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. So some of my module running it'll be a little trip down memory lane for me. So I'll pick some of my favorite old school modules
Yeah.
and just kind of run them.
Do you have any could they come to mind right off the top of the head?
But the Borderlands is the module. This is the module against which all other modules should be measured, at least for me, because that's the module that was in that box that I found in my mom's attic.
Yes.
I've played that thing so many times I could speed run it. You know, like I'm going left, I'm going right, I'm jumping over the 10-foot pit. I attacked the Minotaur before. Anyway, it was. I played it a lot.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean that's a classic. I definitely understand why people gravitate to it, and I don't know. This probably is not interesting to a majority of my audience, but they did just release the new 5e 2024 set, and it's got something akin to Keep on the Borderlands. And it's not the same as the exact old one, but it's got a similar kind of vibe to it. So maybe some people will be interested to know that. Yeah.
So a lot of the classics, White Plume Mountain, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. There was the Against the Giant series is always good. There was a somewhat more obscure UK module called Drums on Fire Mountain that I played a bunch. It's really awesome.
Okay.
Oddly, not the Isle of Dread. I've played it. It's just not. I don't know. It's not Keep on the Borderlands.
Gotcha. No, I understand.
And the Ravenloft stuff is fantastic.
Yeah.
I love me some Ravenloft.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement on that. I'm curious, did you ever play any of the Dragonlance stuff?
No. Well, a little bit. I mean, so I essentially grew up in a gaming store.
Yeah.
It was like 4 blocks from my house. I spent a lot of time there. I played
Yeah.
a lot of games. I'm pretty sure that I played at least a little bit of Dragonlance, but it was never the main jam. I think that there was a time when it was closer to being one of the default settings because there weren't that many settings.
Yes.
I have read the books many times and love them.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that it was not something that we did a lot of actual play for. Not that I recall anyway.
Yeah, I think it was very different than a lot of the other settings at the time, especially because they had such well fleshed out novelizations pretty much for the same period of time that you'd be playing the game. And I think even the modules, you were playing through the exact storyline in a lot of cases. A very bizarre decision. Because I feel like the only people that would really be interested in them would be people who've already read the books. And then at that point, like, you know, what are you doing?
Well,
so
I think that there's at least some market for that, some sort of strange marriage between role playing and fanfic.
Yeah, I guess I can see that.
I mean, the stuff was really popular, and in some cases, I think some of the audience there would have bought it because they wanted to see the D&D stats for their favorite characters as much or more than they actually wanted to run the silly thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's kind of a blind spot for me. It's always baffling to me when people buy things they have no intention of ever playing. That doesn't even occur to me as a thought. So, but I'm sure there are a bunch of collectors and stuff like that, and makes sense. So, gotcha. All right. So I'm curious what other tabletop games that you like to play other than Shadowdark, if you have any.
So in terms of role playing games, I've played just about everything at one time or another.
Yeah.
I do really like Trophy. I still do some design work for that. I've got a Spelljammer thing that I tinker with occasionally that is probably not going to get done anytime soon. Swords of the Serpentine is fantastic. It's from Pelgrane. It's a gumshoe chassis, but it's sword and sorcery.
Okay.
And Eversink, the setting for that is probably the best urban setting I've ever read. It is spectacular. It's very few things I've ever read in terms of RPG products that made me just want to sit down and write and play more than reading that book did.
Gotcha.
So that's awesome. I still love and play Call of Cthulhu. All of the big ones. Mithras is great. I still occasionally play first edition White Star Wars when the mood strikes. A lot of things. Like I have a lot of games. Now I do have a lot of games that I don't play, which might upset you. But in my case,
it does. I'm deeply disturbed by this fact. Yeah.
In my case, sometimes I just want to. So I want to read it because I'm, as a designer, especially, I want to see what they did with the rules. I'm looking at the layout. Sometimes the fiction part of it is interesting, or the world building, or whatever. Some stuff like Ultraviolet Grasslands, for example, I've never run that. I might, but I might not.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad, and that's one of the very few books I actually have a physical copy of, and I was reading it the other day.
Interesting. So, were you specifically mining it for ideas, or just you really enjoy the setting and you want to immerse?
Well, in this particular case, I was going through it with an eye to trying to figure out how I wanted to do some different parts of the Ashelon book, and so I was looking mostly at the location stuff that he'd done for that, and how he'd set it up, and what kind of information he was providing. Because Luca tends to be a very evocative writer, and he's less on it's short and punchy, not long and laborious. And yeah, so it's one of those things that I'll go back to. Just like sometimes I'll go back and reread the remaster of Into the Odd just to marvel at the layout.
Gotcha. It makes sense. I think especially as a creator and a designer, that makes a lot of sense to me, because there are a lot of really awesome products out there, and a lot of them are very obscure. So there's a lot of fodder out there for borrowing for inspiration and stuff. So I can understand that. You've mentioned Trophy something a couple times. I think you also messaged me about it. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So one of the other books that I'd been spending a lot of time with when I started doing Shadows of Empire was the setting book for the role-playing game Trophy. So Trophy, there's three parts to it. There's Trophy Dark, which is more of a one-shot horror fantasy game. And then there's a related rule set called Trophy Gold, which is more campaign-oriented. And so Trophy Gold is, it's a very minimalist rule set. It's a little bit like, what is that called? Cthulhu Dark. I forget what it's called. Anyway, it's very rose-light.
Okay.
But so it's a great rule set. I've written a bunch of stuff for it. It's awesome. But the setting book for Trophy is spectacular. The entire book is just procedural tables of details. So the main city, there's no write-up of the city. There's just a bunch of different quarters. You get a little blurb and then like a D66 table that you roll on. And so different things come to the fore when you're playing, but it's entirely procedurally generated. It is genius and so well written. So I'd been reading that and I was like, the setting is all random tables. And this is, so you can see how part of how this Shadows of Empire sort of came from there. I mean, my tables aren't done in quite the same way. And frankly, I didn't have it in me to do that many D66 tables.
I understand.
But it was sort of an experiment on my part to see how much of a setting you can paint just using the randomized elements of tables rather than putting that same information. Because so if you took the table from Shadows of Empire about the trade caravans you roll on, well, I certainly could have put that into paragraphs. As paragraphs, I think it would make people's eyes glaze oh. But as a table, I mean, so when you're reading through the book, you read through the table, and there's no extraneous words. It's all right there, and occasionally it's actually also useful.
Yes.
So I've noticed that like some of my favorite designers are big on tables. Skirples, for example, tables. So
I keep hearing everyone telling me how amazing Skirples is. I don't look at system agnostic stuff, but this is one of those I think I probably need to check out.
Well, he does have a system that he tinkers around with, but the books, so Magical Industrial Revolution and the Monster Overhaul are both setting agnostic.
Yeah, Monster Overhaul is the one that I've heard of and I'm familiar with. Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic. And there's a bunch of stuff on his blog called Coins and Scrolls. He's doing the Treasure Overhaul, a companion book which will involve treasure but also spells. And and oh my goodness, it looks so good.
Is this going to be like a Kickstarter, or does he release on DriveThru, or does he have his own site?
I don't remember how the monster overhaul worked. I only have it in PDF, so I don't really. My memory of that time is fuzzy. I don't remember exactly how that went. But yeah, there will be a Kickstarter. I'm sure. I don't know about ongoing hardback support, but for anybody who does OSR stuff, I would jump on that because you'll probably be able to add on a hardback copy of the monster overhaul for some sort of reasonable price. I would imagine.
Yeah, I would think so
Kickstarter
too.
being what it is.
Very
So
cool.
I am going to be all over that.
Makes sense. Yeah, everyone I talk to in the OSR community is bananas for Skirples, so I feel like I need to go check it out just to see the cultural phenomenon.
Oh well, it's even just the blog. Like, there's all sorts of stuff on the blog. It's just he's just throwing diamonds around like they're not worth anything.
Yeah, I always really struggle with that because usually when I'm usually going to look for specific information. I'm not just like show me all the cool things that you have. I'm like, no, I'm looking for this one particular thing. But maybe I do need to start looking at more of these blogs and stuff.
I'm with you. I don't actually. I find it a little bit difficult because you go to the blog and you start reading and it's just not engaging. It's like this is my spare time. I don't want to have to plow through this to find something.
Yes.
But there are a few blogs where I enjoy reading it enough for reasons, and they can be different reasons. That I'm like, I'm going to explore this more. Coins and Scrolls is one of those. There's a couple of other ones, but I will be deviled if I can remember their names.
That's okay. If you remember them, you can message to me, and we'll put them down in the description.
Yeah, I do have a list of blogs, but it's not a huge list. Like, I don't spend a lot of time on blogs. There's a guy. Some of them are Substacks now. There's a guy called Merc Dice that has a relatively new Substack that is really good.
Okay. Was it you say Merc Dice?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I'll see if I can find
he's had a couple of things in the last couple of weeks that I've taken the time. So you get emails with the articles in them, and I've copied them into Word documents and put them in the right folders next to the right projects because it's stuff I want to look at. I even told him I titled the document "Merc Dice Has Ideas," and I put it in next to my my project stuff.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like Substack has really kind of taken over recently. I don't know if it's like relatively new or what the deal is, but I became aware of it recently. So very interesting.
Yeah, actually, so I have a Substack that I haven't published anything on, but I have one, and just recently kind of randomly got a follower too.
Ooh, interesting. I wonder if it was me because I think you might have commented on one of the, or you might have looked at one of the posts or whatever. But speaking of,
Oh yeah, go ahead. No.
Speaking of, Runeforged has a new Substack where I do all sorts of Shadowdark related commentary and review stuff. I just got done doing a tier list for the Shadowdark spells for the priest class, as well as some updates for some of the stuff that I'm working on next. So there'll be a link to that down in the description if you want to go check it out. What were we saying?
You should go check it out. Yeah, what was I saying?
I don't know. I'm so sorry.
No, there was a thing. I was. Oh God.
Were you talking about? You were going to talk about your Substack or somebody else's Substack?
Oh yeah. No. So I set it up because I've been toying with the idea of taking some of the design journal stuff that I do on my creator thread in the Arcane Library and migrating that over to a Substack. But frankly, I think I'm better off sticking with the walk-by traffic I get on the Arcane Library for the moment. So I set the Substack up and then never did anything with it. It's just sitting there as the D77 game Substack.
Gotcha.
But if you've been on DriveThru and you did a search for D77 games, that's the only thing you're going to find. And if that one lonely dude who's my Substack follower is out there, I promise you, buddy, I will write something at some point that will come to you in your inbox.
You heard it here first.
Spawn number one.
That's
just for you.
So funny. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I got a lot of organic stuff from Substack. Like I just posted some stuff, and then I had some followers that came over and followed. But you can see they have some really good metrics about where your new subscribers are coming from, and a lot of them were just kind of organic in the app. So there seems to be decent discoverability on there, even though there is no like tabletop RPG category yet, which hopefully they'll fix soon. But overall, I'm really liking it. I think it's very easy to write blogs and stuff on there. Yeah, very cool. Kind of winding down here. I did have one last question for you, and there's a bunch of new tabletop RPGs coming out. Either they've come out recently or they're coming out in the near future. Any interest in playing any of those? Any of those on your radar?
I'll play just about anything. So I just recently got the last PDF owed to me from the Terry Pratchett Discworld RPG Kickstarter, and I would very much like to play that. The Night Watch books especially are a huge part of my fantasy headcanon. Gotcha. I love Terry Pratchett, so I might try and get that to the table. Yeah, of the recent, that's probably the biggest deal of recent things that I want to play. I have no idea how functional it is as a role-playing game. I mean,
Sure.
it's a pretty, the mechanics are kind of out there, but I would like to give it a try.
Gotcha.
Yeah, most of the other stuff that I've done recently has been Shadowdark related. I think, yeah, mostly Shadowdark related.
Gotcha. Makes sense given that you create for it and seem to really enjoy it. So.
Well, I did some other Kickstarters. It just hasn't been anything that I've done recently. I missed a Kickstarter. I really love Gauntlet Publishing. They do The Between and Brindlewood Bay.
Okay, I've heard the name, but I don't know what it is.
It gets a lot of talk because of the mystery mechanic, which is, I think, it's fantastic, and you either love it or you hate it. But they did a new Kickstarter for The Between, which is a Victorian monster hunting game. It's got a Powered by the Apocalypse base, and the context sort of started off as a very clear homage to the show Penny Dreadful.
Oh, interesting. That sounds like a cool setting.
It's great. It's fantastic. I love it. And unfortunately, I just blanked and missed it, so I've missed my chance to get hardbacks. But that's a great game.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are things that I've not heard of, or not on my radar. So thanks for introducing this to me.
No, The Between and Brindlewood Bay. I think that you've got the right sense of humor for it. It's very much a Murder She Wrote with added Cthulhu.
Hey, it's hard to go wrong. You just add Cthulhu to stuff, and it usually turns out just fine.
No, it's fantastic. Yeah, I couldn't those. Both of those games are wonderful. Very
cool. All right, sir. So we have just hit the hour mark. Can you believe we went for an entire hour?
Wow, look at us go.
Yeah, I can believe
I'm a talky guy.
Yeah, that's fine. Where can folks find you?
So I'm on DriveThruRPG, Fenris77. I'm on Discord on the Arcane Library, mostly hanging out at my creator side, talking about my stuff. And I also spend a lot of time on the RPG Pub forums. I'm one of the moderators over there. So,
gotcha.
There are a lot.
Very cool. All right. Well, I think that about does it for today. Adam, thanks for coming on. Hopefully we can do this again.
Thanks for having me. I'd love to come back when we've got other things to talk about.
Absolutely. Next time.
Content, hyperlinks.
Yeah. Anytime you publish something new, let me know, and maybe we can squeeze
you in.
All
right. Sounds good, man.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Have a good one. Bye.
Yeah, bye.